Hey, I'm Di McQueen, licensed clinical social worker, family and addiction expert. I'm here with Dr. Brian Jackson, my longtime cohort who specializes in the field of addiction. Welcome to Healing Families Shattered by Addiction.
Di and I have worked with addicts, alcoholics, and their families for over 30 years combined. Our podcast and coaching programs focus on families who have a loved one suffering from addiction. Our experience has been that this disease affects families as much, if not more, than the addict or alcoholic.
Is your world spinning out of control? Are you codependent? Are you experiencing worry, loss of sleep, and difficulty concentrating? If so, you're in the right place. Brian and I have both personally lived it, learned it, and now we're going to teach you tools and techniques on how to get your life back that you thought was shattered by addiction.
Okay, let's dive in.
Brian and I are so excited to introduce to you our new sponsor, Lakeview Health. They are a wonderful residential treatment center. Whether it's the family member who is looking for a place or the addict or alcoholic themselves, this would be the place that we would refer them to. Brian, you have many years of experience with Lakeview.
Yeah, Lakeview Health is a center of excellent addiction treatment. They take an evidence-based approach, medical approach to treating this complex brain disease. They hold the Joint Commission's Golden Seal, and they were voted one of America's best treatment centers by Newsweek magazine. They deliver dual diagnosis, gender-responsive, and trauma-informed care at their gorgeous facility here in Jacksonville, Florida. But they do see people from all over the world do come here to Jacksonville to go to treatment at Lakeview. Their levels of care include medically supervised detox, which a lot of people do need. Then they stabilize them in a residential rehabilitation and partial hospitalization program. They have board-certified physicians, master-level therapists, and they work to address the unique needs of each patient. So in other words, it's not a cookie-cutter program. They help individuals build skills for long-term sobriety. So if you or someone you know needs treatment, please visit their site at lakeviewhealth.com. We also have a hyperlink on our website at familyandaddictionexperts.com where you can just click and get some information about Lakeview Health. And Di, I think you have a number for people to call if they would like to inquire about treatment.
I sure do. That number is 888-480-3799. That's 888-480-3799. Give them a call.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Healing Families Shattered by Addiction. I'm Dr. Brian Jackson, and I'm here with my good friend, Miss Di McQueen, who is a licensed clinical social worker and also a Florida Master's Certified Addiction Professional. Hello, Di. How are you?
Hey, B. So good to see you and so good to be back working with you. We haven't in a couple times now. So it's exciting. I always love doing it with you.
Well, good. I enjoy doing it with you too, because sometimes it's difficult just to do it by yourself unless we have a guest on. But anyway, so here we are, and you and I had talked, and one of the things that we do, separate and apart from working with families, although it does involve families, is substance use evaluations for the court system. And when I say the court system, the main areas that we do evaluations for is the criminal courts and also for family court. So we'd like to talk a little bit about that. We talk about consequences a lot, that people can have as a result of their substance use disorder. And when you start having criminal charges against you or custody challenges as a result of your substance use disorder, those are pretty evident and obvious consequences that have to be addressed, not only for the safety of you, but the safety of the public and the safety of children. So sometimes it's an eye-opener for a lot of people.
It certainly is. And, B, I don't know if a lot of you guys know, but Brian he is an expert witness in the Florida judicial system in a lot of areas, which is pretty notable. I mean, it's not something that you see every day from your average counselor. He has done just hundreds and hundreds of evaluations for substance use disorder and makes recommendations on the regular. Um, yes, I am involved, but not nearly to the degree to which. And he is really, really, really fantastic at what he does. Very, very fair and very impartial to trying to be swayed by any side or whatever. But, the idea is this is serious, serious work and serious, serious business when you get to a place that your disease has taken you to a place of needing legal, being in the legal system. So B, tell me a little bit about like what does an evaluation look like? Um, who would ask you to do that and the why? And just take us through it a little bit,
Yeah,
and
sure,
like,
sure, sure. So let's say, for example, a DUI, which is, I think, one of the most egregious crimes that you can commit. But people commit a lot of other crimes while they're under the influence of substances. So how I get involved is many times the attorney representing or on the other side, meaning the prosecutor, will request a substance use evaluation. And on many occasions, I will be a court-appointed evaluator for the court who wants a substance use evaluation. So it basically starts with a biopsychosocial evaluation. The biopsychosocial um, is a fancy name for me asking the person a whole bunch of questions. So I just want to break this down and not dummy it down too much. But, and that includes, substance use history, um, family history, medical history, psychological history. So we're looking for things in there that might connect, whether there's a genetic predisposition, whether there's a dual diagnosis. Also, obviously, legal history. Is this the first time you've ever gotten in trouble? Is this your second DUI? Is this the first, or is this your second domestic battery? And so then, the repeat offenders, if you will, then it starts to become obvious that, the alcohol or drugs are becoming, a problem. We also take social history. We're looking at employment. Are they staying at the same job for a period of time? Are they losing jobs and jumping jobs, things of that nature? And so the person that sees me, I try to be disarming because, people get nervous when they come in for a substance use evaluation. But if there's a problem, there's always a solution. And that's kind of the way I lead into it. But again, in the subjective biopsychosocial, the person sitting across from me can basically tell me anything. Some people are brutally honest. Some people are not good historians. In other words, they lie to me. But in
never
any
in the
event,
substance use world, people
never,
tell a
never,
lie.
never,
Come
never,
on.
right. Right. And so then we do some, obviously, urine drug screens and some objective testing. And there's a test that's been around since the 80s, which is 93 to 94% accurate in terms of determining whether a person has a low probability or a high probability of a substance use disorder. So
Right.
we take that, or I take that and put it all together and make a decision on whether or not this person has an issue with substances. So we'll look at the American Society of Addiction Medicine criteria for different levels of treatment. So I have to do conclusions and recommendations on the report that I write. And so it's a fairly long report, but at the end of the day, basically all the attorneys and the judges are interested in is what is the conclusion and what is the recommendation. So, it could be anywhere from inpatient treatment if I think that the person is not going to be able to safely stop drinking or drugging without, some medical supervision in terms of the detox. There's also a level of care called intensive outpatient treatment. And typically those programs can be anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks long. They could meet 3 days a week, 4 days a week. And we have some good resources here in town that we can refer to. And then the next level would be outpatient treatment, where I feel like, this is not an ongoing problem. It might be a one-off episodic use. There isn't really a history of a lot of problems in the person's life. And so at that point, I would suggest some sort of outpatient individual treatment with a substance abuse use counselor that also specializes, in dual diagnosis. It's rare that when there is a criminal arrest, that I suggest that nothing happen. So it's really important for that person, and it's up to them to take those suggestions and either apply them to their situation or not. My experience has been if you're proactive and you get involved in a treatment program, number one, hopefully you'll start to get the light bulb to go on to see that whatever the criminal offense that you were charged with was directly related to your substance use drinking, and you start to take a look, or substance use disorder, and you start to take a look at that. The other benefit of that too is that the courts uh, like to see people being proactive and taking action. I mean, walking in front of a judge and saying, I'm never going to do this again. They'll basically say, "Oh, that's wonderful." Like, how do you? So, as opposed to saying, I went to inpatient treatment, then I went to intensive outpatient treatment.
Right. And I'm
I'm following through with my counselor, and in that case, like, they can get reports to the court or reports, to the attorneys through the counselors where they sign a third party to release to, um, track their progress. Are they compliant with the treatment plan? Are they showing up on time? Are they doing everything they need to do? And, a lot of cases, the courts will mitigate the sentence as opposed to if you did nothing. Um, and then
exactly.
we also talked about family.
Yeah, the
So,
families. I mean, I was going to
um,
ask you about, the fact that, families are, a lot of times there's a custody battle, or, there may be a divorce pending based on substance use, etc. And I know you do get involved in those. I know for both of us, the child's well-being is always our first thought. So there are other things that you do in those cases, whether it's collateral information and doing, interviewing of other people that they know, etc. But I'd like you to go into some detail about that as well, which is it becomes a little different issue when children are involved, and you take that very seriously.
yeah, and in family law court, you have situations where um, the couple is going through a divorce and there's children involved, and the court is trying to determine custody and custody arrangements. Well, if one or both of the parties seem to have a substance use disorder, the courts will typically want them to be evaluated. More than likely, it's one person, and sometimes that can be the reason that's cited for the divorce. But the most important thing is the children, and I stress that so much when I'm on the witness stand or whatever. That the only thing that everybody should be concerned about, lawyers, me, judges, is the safety of the children. And when you waive that in front of a person that has a substance use disorder, that, hey, you know what? If you continue to drink, you continue to do drugs, there's going to be some real bumpers that are going to be put on you, including maybe not being able to see your children at all and having no custody until you get some help and get straightened out, or supervised visitation. And that can be at a public place called the nurturing center, which is, you've got a counselor looking over your shoulder and you're spending limited time with your children. Um, so and then there's other situations where if we do have supervised visitation, who is the supervisor going to be? Is it grandma, is it grandpa, is it a friend of, things of that nature. So it's real important that when I ask somebody who's sitting across from me, hey, when you have the children, can you not drink? And if the answer is, why can't I drink? Um, and I recommend this to all parents, whether or not they have a problem or not, where they're splitting
Right.
custody. If they're impaired a little bit, a lot, if one of the children was to fall or have an accident or whatever, you don't want to get behind the wheel of a car, and then you have child endangerment and everything that goes along. So a lot of times my recommendation across the board is when you have the children, be it mother, dad, I suggest no drinking. So there's other tools that have been introduced to the family court to ensure peace of mind. And one of them is called SoberLink.
Yeah, I was
So
just going
let's
to ask
say,
you that.
so let's say, Di, I was married to you, and you said, Brian, I don't trust him, to not drink.
Right.
And so a lot of times I will recommend that, for the time that the father has the children, that SoberLink is in place. And what SoberLink is, it'll go off 2 or 3 times a day, and the parent will have to blow into the machine. There's a camera on it, so we can verify that it's you, and you'll either get a positive or negative for alcohol. And typically, there's some consequences that the court will put behind that. For example, if you have fails, then your custody may be uh, really cut down. Supervision maybe put back in place, and or SoberLink. And for those with narcotic issues, there's also a drug patch that the parent might have to wear, where it detects whether or not drugs are being used, and that gets downloaded on a computer, and we look at that. So, I mean, you and I talk about consequences, Di, and sometimes we ask, like, what is going to be the aha moment? What is going to get this person to maybe take a look at themselves and say, hey, I got a problem? When you're dangling your children and time with your children that you love, in spite of whatever you have going on with your illness, um, a lot of times that's a big wake up call
Yep.
for parents. It's like, alcohol or my children.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really, really big deal. And I also know that, there is times when, we do things like ask, or parent give parents permission to go do like what they call a PET test or other blood tests, right? Where they can actually go in if the parent is feeling like the other one's not telling the truth or whatever, that they have the right to do that or request that so that the child is safe. We don't have to go into detail about that, but things like that where
I mean,
you
I think it's important because that is another tool that's been introduced to the courts, and Di, that's a good point about the PEth test, which is something that detects alcohol with a 10-day look back. So, say you had the children for the weekend, and then you are asked to do a PEth test, and it shows that there's alcohol in your system over the weekend. There's no way to get around that. So that's come a long way from just a urine test to take a snapshot of where you are right now. So I'm very happy and very pleased that the court systems um, are not imposing, but yeah, I guess imposing these things on parents to ensure the safety of the children. Because if the children are with dad and mom is worried about them drinking, uh, while they have the children, I mean, where's her peace of mind for the time that she might be able to get out and do something for herself because she doesn't have the children? She'll be worried the whole time. But if we put some of these things in place, it doesn't give you 100% peace of mind, but it does give you peace of mind, especially if there's consequences, um, tied to non-compliance and failing on these things. So it's a very interesting um, situation. And I think the courts are understanding more and more that it is an illness and that
yes.
it does need to be treated. And so it's been kind of cool to see, not that I'm the be all and end all, but if I make a recommendation for treatment, the court typically will go along with it,
Yes,
especially
it's
when children involved.
right. It's really important and it's great that there is. And yeah, we use other tools as well. But one of the things that I know you do and I do when I do these is definitely do what we call collateral information, right? And
Mhm.
what exactly does that mean? Help them
Well,
understand.
well, yeah. So say the husband is the one who has been identified or accused of having a problem. I will, when you say collateral information, I'm glad you brought that up, Di. I will interview the wife or ex-wife. I might even interview some people who know
Hmm.
uh, both the mother and the the husband or dad. And then also reviewing collateral information like judges' orders that are put out by the court that are in place, when we start this whole process, because a lot of times there is some sort of custody arrangement in place. And it could be that right now 100% custody belongs to mom. and dad's trying to get some custody based on what he's done. So I think really reviewing court documents, any third-party information that would be pertinent to the case, be it a criminal case, be it family law, um, and then sometimes we'll look at their history. Like they might have a history of legal problems. They might have a history of treatment where they actually went to treatment and then relapsed. So, um, it's just important to get as much information as you possibly can. Sometimes you have to put a governor on what, a husband, an ex-husband and ex-wife are saying about each other, because it's a very high emotional state. But some things are factual. I mean, a lot of times I'll see pictures, videos, all kinds of things that nobody can deny.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's saying it's a well-rounded, the idea is to give everybody fair treatment and fair say so that we can get a much more well-rounded picture of what's really happening. And again, the idea is not to hurt somebody. The idea is to help all parties get what they need so that they have the best chance in recovery. But most importantly, especially when dealing with family law, the idea is to take care of those children and make sure that they're okay. That's, I think, for, whenever we talk about it, it's really the most important thing is the children's safety and letting them know we don't need to keep perpetuating the problem for generations and generations and put those children at risk in any way if we can prevent it. So that's really
Yeah,
important.
and when there yeah, and you and I talk about it whenever children are involved. I mean, we kind of lean towards an overabundance of caution. Um, and and I think that's just so important because it gives peace of mind to everybody involved.
Right.
Um,
But I think, most people, like you said, right in the beginning, be that, the most important thing is that, you have a beautiful way of making people feel at ease. And when they come in here, I'm sure they're scared to death thinking, oh my God, they're going to throw the book at me. But that's not the case. That's never our objective. The objective is to get help where help is needed, to try to get an honest surveillance of what's really happening. As we know, when people are heightened in their emotions and going through those things, the stories can exaggerate. And, sometimes we need to like look at what's really happening. So that's always an interesting one too, is to discern what information is real and what information is not, or has the story been embellished a little bit. And that's not always easy to do. And so the collaboration between people helps a lot to help us see a clearer picture of what's really happening. I mean, I think
yeah,
it
and I
goes.
mean, yeah, and the beautiful thing is that you and I, and you've done a bunch of these, are able to staff, collaborate, because I think it's very important to have two sets of eyes to look at it because,
Yep.
based on our education and experience, we can kind of, I mean, we don't have a magic wand, but pick up on whether the person is being, honest, open, maybe less than honest, or, holding some things back. But back to what we talked about in the beginning, or you're just talked about now, Di, is that there are no hopeless cases. So if you come in for an evaluation and everybody has been saying what a piece of dung you are, that's not for us to do. Our job is to say, hey, I think there's an issue here, and this is what my recommendations are going to be. And we tell people before we even write the report that this is what the recommendations are going to be. And are you willing to do this? And I don't know, 9 times out of 10, people will say yes. You'll
that
get
it,
one that is just so resistant that, it's obvious that they're willing to sacrifice, either their legal status criminally or, custody with their children, because the disease has got such a hold on them.
yeah, which
And
is
that's
really.
unfortunate.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is really unfortunate, but it's really, it's another one of those things that I don't think most people realize how the depth and breadth of what family and addiction experts does, which is, we're not just, a person who understands a little bit about addiction. You and I, between us, have a tremendous, depth of how we can help the addict and the family in their recovery process. And I'm sure there's other small organizations out there that do the same kind of thing where it's not just a number taking to us. It means something very serious to us, And I love that you have delved into this side of things for so many years. Because I think people have tremendous respect for who you are, and the idea that the judges and attorneys appreciate your input on what is happening in their case without judging the person, which is a gift in and of itself. So I
Yeah, and
always
then what
get
I've
fascinated.
noticed, like in the last 5 years, is that, aside from the case, I mean, while I'm sitting in there, judges will ask me questions about addiction, the difference between episodic abuse and alcohol dependence or drug dependence. And, that's I always love answering the questions because I encourage them that they're trying to understand this whole thing. It's not like, oh, wow, here's this bad guy that did this bad thing, and now I'm going to punish him, as opposed to, hey, maybe we can get this guy help that doesn't
Right.
like exempt him from having to do some kind of retribution or rehabilitation or have some kind of punishment, but just punishing him for having an alcohol or drug problem is more and more the courts are trying to lean towards, okay, let's try and get this person help,
Right.
you know,
Which
assuming they
we,
want it.
yes, and we both favorably believe that most people, you know, given some kindness and some understanding and some non-judgmental input, goes a long way
Right.
of helping them realize that it is important to go get the help that they need, so that they can live the life they want to live. They really have the opportunity, and it's, that this could be a great opportunity for them to take this moment in time and move their life forward. And that's always the goal. We want everyone to be as happy as us be.
Yeah, I keep telling people, what happened to you is probably a gift. It comes wrapped in some crappy paper, but
Right.
one day you'll look back on this as a gift. So,
Right. If you
um,
use it as a stepping stone, it certainly can be. So
yeah,
it's great. Well, thank you. I mean, you know what? I think this is one of those podcasts that most people don't really realize, and I'm sure is not talked about very much in the podcast world, especially when you're thinking about addiction. But I think it goes to something that is very, very important, because there are so many people on a daily basis that have some form of legal uh, problem going on. And it's nice to hear, you kind of explain it to people a little bit. I know we could explain a lot more, but I think it gives people fundamentally the idea of what that looks like. So thank you so much.
yeah. So that was fun. I did too much talking, but
Totally fine. It's perfect
it'll
because
be your
you
turn
are
in the
much
barrel
more of an
next time.
expert in this than me. Much more. All right. So we are Healing
All
Families
right.
Shattered
Well,
by
thank you.
Addiction, and we will see you guys, or we'll hear you, or you'll hear us on the next go round. And thank you, Dr. Brian Jackson. Your expertise is very important, and you are an awesome, awesome partner in crime. So thanks for that. All right.
Thank you, Di. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for joining our podcast, Healing Families Shattered by Addiction. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with more important tools, techniques, and ways for you to focus on you instead of the alcoholic or addict in your world.
Until then, please go to our website, familyandaddictionexperts.com. That's familyandaddictionexperts.com. You'll also see links to our Facebook and Instagram pages. Please also, if you have any emails that you would like to send us, that's info@familyandaddictionexperts.com. That's info@familyandaddictionexperts.com. With any thoughts, feelings, questions that you may have for us, we would love to hear from you, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.